There's a huge change to VR&E benefits coming down the pipeline for veterans February 10th, and I want to touch on it so that you understand the process and you can get ahead of this ball if it applies to you. First off, what is VR&E? It stands for Veteran Readiness and Employment, which was known as Voc Rehab or Vocational Rehab up until recently when they changed the name, but this helps service members and vets with, employment, education. Essentially, VR&E is, if you think of like VA benefits, but it is similar to the GI Bill, except not for colleges. So this is like tech school. Some of my buddies used it for film school. You could potentially use this for like welding or pilot's license, some of this stuff. So Voc Rehab or VR&E kind of fills the gap of where GI Bill for college kind of, fell off benefits wise for non-college degrees like tech programs and certifications and stuff like that. They can also help you become, employed and have those gainful opportunities as a veteran. So VR&E is awesome. So I was watching YouTube the other day and I saw this video where a gentleman goes and he reads through a Redditor's post. The guy's name is like Squirrely Guy 08. And he was talking about how they just got informed. Something just came down the pipe. It's changing February 10th. So essentially in the past, you apply for VR&E benefits, they deny, you just reapply. What's going to happen now is essentially if you had applied in the past and not gotten granted to start your program, you will now have to appeal that denial or disapproval of your initial claim. So this is a little bit different than the previous where you could just apply, reapply. So essentially what I believe this is saying is that if you apply for this program and you don't get in, and then you're like, well, shoot, I'll go to this program. Like, you can't just throw out 7 different applications now. It'll be, hey, I applied for this program. I wasn't able to get in. Now I need to appeal that decision to apply for another program. Or you can submit like a supplemental claim. So if that one gets denied, you can submit a supplemental claim to get that one approved. If you want to get this piece approved, you submit a supplemental claim and then you get that approved. If you want to do something different, you have to appeal this decision to reapply elsewhere. It's really, in the grand scheme of things, this doesn't sound like it is a huge change to the benefits so much as just the administration side and the processing side. That said, if you are looking to get approved for this stuff, make sure you get that application in right now, because supposedly they're not planning to grandfather pending applications, and it usually takes between 2 days and a week to get that stuff approved. Once you get this, just know essentially this: if you haven't applied for VR&E benefits in the past, it doesn't really matter to you. If you have and you weren't able to get all that taken care of and get approved, then going forward you will need to appeal that initial decision to apply elsewhere. And I'm sure there'll be more coming down the pipe when this gets officially announced on February 10th and they give us more guidance. A little bit of clarification here: if you had a non-pursuit, i.e. you started an application, you didn't complete the application, this doesn't apply to you, so you can just go ahead and apply. This is specifically for cases where the veteran was denied VR&E benefits for that service. They will now need to appeal that decision within that year in order to be able to move on, rather than just being able to reapply, or you'll need to do a supplemental claim. So ultimately, outsider looking in, the biggest thing that I see this affecting is the process. So there might be a little bit of confusion there, but I would imagine that there will also be a backlog. Like typically when things like this change in the VA, a million people send in appeals or whatever, and so that pipeline can get clogged while they hire. So just know that, if you can get it in right now, you got a good shot. But if you're appealing, this process, just give it some patience. Now, my assumption is that we are changing this process just to, I would hope, to mitigate paperwork, i.e. instead of one person submitting 7 different applications, it would just be a simple nope, appeal this one and then submit elsewhere. And in theory, that would alleviate some of the pains and or bottlenecks within this system. I'll be honest, there's a lot of fear mongering about VA benefits right now and chopping blocks and all this stuff. And it's interesting, I watched a video earlier and they were trying to frame that this gentleman, Russell, who personally thinks that veterans under 30% VA disability should not be compensated for that, and trying to frame that as Donald Trump's, the new president of the United States proposal, and that he wants to slash veteran benefits. I've seen a lot of stuff floating around with absolutely no substance about whether or not Donald Trump and the new presidency and the administration is going to slash veteran benefits. It's one of those things where it's look, until it even gets to Congress, if something like that is suggested, don't be worried about it. But then it has to get approved by Congress and then written into law by the president, right? And I have not heard anything directly from the administration talking about coming after VA benefits. And honestly, I don't think they would. For one, most administrations are admittedly not trying, like, they don't want to piss off the military. They're generally, whether they're pro-military or not pro-military, they generally aren't trying to just like dismantle the military veteran. And I honestly think that like coming after VA benefits, like especially if you just nixed VA disability, that's political suicide, right? Like if you are any part of that group that cuts out the 25 million vets on, you know, disability and receiving VA benefits and just says, nope, no more, thank you for your service, but goodbye, that's not good. And that is a very large subsect of the voting population, right? Like, yeah, 25 million out of 300 million, whatever. But like, and here's the thing is I'm seeing this all over the place where people are like fear mongering that, you know, this is the thing. But the DOGE, like the Department of Government Efficiency and Elon and all that, at least what I've seen so far, they're not coming after VA benefits and disability and all this stuff. They're trying to eliminate unnecessary federal jobs and occupations and things, i.e., we all know the guy who spent 20 years in the military, had a friend in the defense, you know, industry or a contract gig, lined up a government contract and maybe even made up a government contract and got some kind of GS, whatever job coming out of the military. And now they like kind of chill and do what, and like, let's be real, government contracting and the government and feds and all that, like, it's not the most efficient thing in the world. So they've got the whole telework thing where they're trying to get people to work in person. They've got the whole like revamping and just making sure that they run streamlined. So kind of what Elon did when he took over Twitter, where he like cut a bunch of the chaff. And this isn't about that business model as far as like whether or not it's successful. This is about like expense management and ensuring that the federal government does not spend money where the federal government doesn't need to, i.e., hey, if one person can do this job, why are we paying 3 people to do this job? Now, I know there's the argument about unemployment and firing people, like nobody likes that, but at the same time, this is kind of what needs to happen. Like, we are at a ridiculous federal budget deficit, and the only way to really fix that is to cut expenses. Now, am I saying that whatever amount of federal jobs get cut is going to fix the the deficit problem? At least not in the immediate future, probably, but you know, anyone with any level of budgeting knowledge knows that, hey, if you can cut expenses, then that really does help you with your basic financial situation, because it's money you are already making that you're now getting to save, vice having to make more, which is not always as easy done as it is said, right? So anyway, I'm kind of going on this rabbit hole, but just know, like, right now I'm feeling like there's a ton of stuff being put out in the world about how the entire world's trying to come after vets and ruin their VA disability and take this, that, and the other from them. And I've not seen anything substantive to actually like say that's the case. There's not been any like physical evidence or anything signed into law or anything that shows anyone's actually coming after your benefits. So don't get sucked into the fear mongering. I don't see any administration, let alone this administration, especially where the vice president was a United States Marine, coming in and being like, screw the veterans. Like, that just feels like political suicide to me. I'm also open to revamping things in a way where, you know, you still take care of the vets. I'm by no means trying to screw vets. But also, like, if we have to suffer a little bit or sacrifice a little bit for the greater good of the federal deficit, it is what it is, right? Like, I understand nobody wants to be the bad parent or the strict parent, but at the end of the day, having strict parents who love you enough to tell you that sometimes no is the answer you need, not the answer you want, is good for a kid. And so, putting that in the political sphere, I'm okay with cutting back on some of the spending and egregiousness that goes on within the federal realm. And if that means that, you know, I'm gonna have to hunker down and suffer a little bit of less luxury in my retirement, I'm not necessarily opposed. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I want them to cut my VA disability. And some of you are going to go straight to the comments and be like, well, then why don't you just get rid of your VA disability? But that's not what this is about. This is just saying, like, look, hey, at some point, at some level, there will be a need to reduce federal spending. It needs to happen whether we want it to or not. And I'm willing to do my part in that as much as I expect anyone else and everyone else to be willing to do their part, because whether it's what you want to hear or not, it needs to happen. That said, I don't see anyone coming after veteran benefits. The VR&E program, like, I've heard a few people make videos on this where like the sky is falling, they're going to screw you. No, I think they just changed the way the paperwork flows in hopes, my hope is that it makes it more seamless. And this whole like trying to paint that somebody has an opinion, therefore they're going to go after all this, like, the president and the Congress, like, that is who decides on DOD and veteran benefits. It's not like one person. And if that one person isn't at the top of the totem pole, they're going to get vetoed. And so, it is what it is. My hope is that life just continues to improve around the United States. I have a lot of confidence in the US and the American people doing what's right for the US and the American people as a whole. And that is my cautiously optimistic statement that I believe is going to happen. So all this being said, your VR&E process is going to change a little bit. Your VA benefits may change a little bit. None of it, to my knowledge, foresight, whatever, is going to be the vet getting just absolutely screwed, which is kind of the mentality in the VA. Like, everybody has this, like, I'm the victim, mentality. And my personal experience with all things DoD and VA overall has been vastly positive. Sure, there have been some things that did not go amazing or perfect, and my VA claim took a little bit of a headache to get all approved, but like, I'm taken care of, and my healthcare is great, and I've been fine. I've had plenty of surgeries and this, that, and the other, and all of it's worked out in the end for me. Nobody that I can think of is dumb enough to do full-on political suicide by taking 25 million vets off of any and all benefits. Like, that's not the first string we're gonna pull. Take it with a grain of salt and be objective as you're watching all this stuff, and don't listen to the sky is falling fearmonger peoples. And you know what? At the end of the day, have a great day. I'd love to hear your experience, so drop in the comments if what your experiences are with VR&E, or if you're seeing something different in the VA side. Like, let's hear it. I want to stay open on all this, so drop all the comments and have a great day.